Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is Mr. Frunk from Mr. Frunk Gaming. I'm here to bring you guys my April 2019 True Draco deck profile. This is the same profile that I used to come in third place in that OTS that we had last weekend, and I hope you guys enjoy. So we'll start off with the monsters. It's pretty standard. You're going to have the one of the big guy, Dynamite Knight. Searches your traps. You can add them to your hand or activate them when a monster or effect is activated. Then you got three ofs. You have Ignis Heat, the True Draco warrior. You obviously play him at 3. He's a really crucial part. So there's 3 Ignis. He searches the spells. You could either activate them or you can add them to your hand. And then you play the 3 of Majesty Maiden. She's very good. A lot of people run her at 2, but I feel like for this format, you need to see your monsters so you can make your plays. So 3 of is definitely the right ratio. But her ability is also, she searches the monsters that you're able to add to your hand so you can disrupt your opponent's plays during their turn using your trap cards to tribute summon during their main phase. So there's your monsters. Go ahead and get them out of the way, and I'll move over to the spells. Alright, the spell lineup is actually going to be pretty standard as well. I don't run a lot of tech in the spells. I run most of my spicy stuff kind of in the trap cards. So anyways, you run the 3 Disciples for your draw engines. Move it down here. Alright, what these guys do right here is you shuffle back 3 True Draco or True King spell, trap, monster, whatever it is, you name it. You shuffle 3 of them back to your main deck, and then you get to draw 1 card. And then if you do that while this is face up, you also get an extra tribute summon for your turn. And then you got the 3 of True Draco Heritage. This guy right here, this is your main draw power. You can actually draw 3 cards if you do this correctly. If you send a spell, trap, and a monster that are True Draco or True King, you actually get to draw 3 cards off of him, and then he also gives you that extra tribute summon as well. So very powerful cards, guys. And then, of course, the field spell, Dragonic Diagram. Hopefully you guys were lucky enough to get these when they were not $30 a piece like I did. And got them for like the $2-3 like they are right now out of the Battle of Legends and even the Megatons, of course. So we played 3 of them, and of course 2 Terraforming, so we really play 5. Dragonic Diagram is one of the better cards in terms of field spells, in my opinion, just because it just helps you facilitate all your combos and all of your plays with the True Dracos, being able to pop either a spell or trap or even a monster and getting whatever you need to extend your plays. Really good card. Also gives your True Draco or True King monsters plus 300 attack or defense, attack and defense, and prevents them from being destroyed by battle once per turn each. Some more draw engine, of course, Card of Demise. Great card, going first or using it in your main phase 2. When you have no cards in your hand, you draw 3. But at the end phase, you have to discard your whole hand. But with a True Draco deck, normally you can set, activate, or even tribute summon whatever you have in your hand to, get rid of it so you don't have to discard anything. And then you also play the double Pot of Duality. We don't special summon very often at all. There's True King's Return, but I normally don't like to use it. It's only like a last resort. But anyways, Pot of Duality is one of the greatest cards in the deck. I run 2 of because you can only resolve it once per turn, and you just don't want to see it again. You actually excavate the top 3 cards of your deck. You pick one, and then you shuffle the rest back into the deck. Your opponent does see the card, so it's pretty good though. And then, of course, the last is the Upstart Goblin. You want to kind of use this last. You don't want to start off with this card unless you really have to. It gives your opponent 1,000 life points, and you get to draw a card. It's pretty easy wording. You just got to be careful, especially going into time rules. You really don't want to give your opponent too many life points and then lose because of that in time. Trust me, it's happened. And then anyway, off to the traps. We have our pretty generic, pretty standard, 3 True Draco Apocalypse. This card is probably one of the best cards in the True Draco deck just because of its effects. You have the ability to tribute summon your monsters during your opponent's turn, your main phase. With this card, also you get to pop another True Draco card you control, and then you get to have the attack and defense of all your opponent's monsters. I mean, and that effect stays even if this card leaves the field. And actually, all the True Draco traps also pop a monster when they leave the field. So really good. And I forgot to say, but all the True Draco spells pop a spell or trap in the back row. So they're also really good. And then True King's Return, it's at 1. It's like a continuous Call of the Haunted. You get to do it your opponent's turn, your turn. I normally try to activate it in the end phase of my opponent's turn to, gain me a monster, before my turn even begins. You can also tribute summon during your opponent's main phase with its effects, and it also has that, that summoning capabilities from the graveyard. And it also pops a monster like I previously said. And anyways, here's kind of the floodgates. I do run 2 Monarchs Erupt. I would probably put this to 3, but I don't know, 2 seems okay for me right now. What it does is only tribute summoned monsters can activate their effects as long as you control a tribute summoned monster and you have no cards in your extra deck. So I don't run an extra deck with this deck, obviously, and all my monsters are normally tribute summons. So all my monsters can do what they need to do, but none of my opponent's monsters normally can, and this is what True Draco is all about. It pretty much tells my opponent not to play Yu-Gi-Oh! If possible. So great card. Also, if I lose my tribute summon monster during my opponent's turn, I have until the end of my turn before this card actually leaves the field. So even if they pop my monster, they still can't activate their effects because this card it kind of lingers. All right, so now we have the skill drain. It's pretty much it. I know this is the Japanese rare, super rare variant. This is you pay 1,000 life points and all monster effects on the field are negated. It pretty much is a continuous. It hurts me as well, so I don't like using it. That's why I'd probably change that out for a 3rd Monarchs Erupt. Then for the main floodgate is there can only be 1. This card, I used to run the Rivalry and Gozen in the main, but I put them in the side because of this card coming out. This card right here, guys, your opponent can only control, either player can either control just one type of each monster. And you say, well, it might hurt my True Dracos, but if I can only control one worm type monster, like my monsters are normally going to be bigger than their monsters. And like a lot of the like the Salamangrates or like the Sky Strikers, they use a lot of machines. I know Ray is a warrior, but they mostly use the machines in their extra deck. But with the Salamangrates, they're all cybers. So if you have this on the field, they can't make those big boards, and it's really hard for them to play around it unless they have some sort of spell or trap removal. So really good floodgate, really good in this day's format. All right, and then here's some of the spice. You might have seen this played in some other decks, but I actually just run 2 of them. They're Solemn Strikes. I don't like running Solemn Judgment because of the time rules and losing a lot of life points. I feel like Solemn Strike does it justice at just paying the 1,500 life points. I really stop. This is like the perfect stop to any big monster or any effect that you just really can't really handle, and this got me out of a lot of sticky situations. Then some more spice is the Stormy Mirror Force, one of the best cards of the format. I don't know why every deck doesn't play at least 2 Stormy Mirror Forces. When your opponent attacks, you flip this. They send all their face-up monsters, attack position, I believe, to their hand. So like you got to think the extra deck monsters go back to the extra deck, and they just used all their resources to make those big boards. I actually flipped this on a whatchamacallit, I think it was a mirror match. True Draco actually sent like 4 of their monsters. They actually had a big board, and I was actually, if I didn't have this, I would have lost the game, but I sent all their monsters back to their hand, and they were unable to continue, and I actually ended up winning that match because I had the more monsters on the field, at the end of the game. So really good. Some people say it's a spice, but I feel like it should be a staple in everybody's deck, honestly. And then here we go, guys. I never would have imagined running infinite permanents in the True Draco, but I tried it out at the OTS tournament, and it just proven itself over and over and over again. Like this right here, this card is one of the best cards in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! It can't be called by the grave. You can use it from your hand, go in second. So it's so good. It just stops any of those monster effects that are really troublesome. And it's like an effect failure, but it's just so much better at the same time. If you have it set first and then flip it, it actually negates everything in the column of infinite permanence as well. So you kind of have to put it. You kind of have to be strategic about where you put it. You don't want to negate your stuff, but if you know that your opponent has something set, you set it in the same column, so you flip it. It'll also negate like the Widow Anchor or the Sky Strikers or whatever it might be. Really good card, mandatory 3 of. And then the last, this could be kind of anything you guys wanted to play. It could be Pot of Desires, but I like the Waterfall of Dragon Souls. It kind of prevents me from being totally beaten by not Red Reboot, but Evenly Matched. You flip this when they flip Evenly Matched or when they play it, and then you send all your worm monsters on the field to the graveyard, and you get a +1 draw. So you get like 3, maybe even 4 draws, depending on how many monsters you had and that you sent to the graveyard. So, and then your next turn, you're not totally just left with an empty board with no way to defend yourself. So it's really good. It also has another effect that I don't really use too often, but you can just add a worm type monster to your hand from your deck, which sometimes comes up, but more than likely I just normally send my own monster and then get the draw too. Like even with Widow Anchor, I chain it to Widow Anchor all the time, and then I just get rid of Dynamite or Ignis or Maiden, whichever one I have, and then I just draw 2 cards, and then don't get my monster. But that's it for the main deck, guys. It's a 42 card main, but I think that's a perfect amount just because you do draw a lot. So if you play 40, you could, but it's not really going to help or hurt the consistency because you normally draw on anywhere from 2 to 3 to even maybe 4 or 5 cards a turn. So just think about that. All right, for the side deck, this is all up to personal preference. I have a very, I know what gets played at my locals, and I like to kind of side for them. But it might be different where you guys live. A lot of people say that. It's true. The meta might be different where you live compared to where I live. So anyways, 2 Inspector Border. This guy just stops everything. Unless your opponent has like a Link 1 type deck, then they can't activate their effects as long as he's on the field. And the only way you can summon him is if there's no other monsters you control on the field. So I normally just summon him, and it's normally GG from there. Like I stopped a Danger Orcus deck with this guy last weekend, and literally it was the only monster I had out for the whole game, and I ended up winning just with Inspector Border because he could not activate any of his effects because he could not, do all the dangers and then get out Saryujas and stuff. And then for those Guard Dragon decks, the big, the danger decks that pull out 4 to 5 monsters, I do play double spear mode. I did run 3, but I feel like it could be a brick if you see it too much. So I feel like 2 is a good number. But like I said, if you have more decks in your local area that do play those big boards, you might want to put it at 3 and then just move something else to 1 or just take something else completely out. But I like it at 2. For people who don't know what it does, you just you can select up to 3 monsters. You select 3 monsters and you just use them as tribute for this guy. You can give it to your opponent and just take away 3 of their monsters, kind of like a kaiju. All right, double Monarch Stormforth. It's a quick play spell, allows you to use your opponent's monsters as tribute summons. It's a good combo with the True Draco Apocalypse or True King's Return, being able to tribute summon your opponent's monsters during their own turn. So we wait until they make a big monster and then just tribute it away. Trust me, you'll get a lot of people mad at you real fast. And then double Evenly Matched, just when I know I'm going to be going second. And I don't know. I don't really side it in too much because I feel like my deck's a good going second deck anyways. But some matchups, like mirror matches, of course. All right, 1 Imperial Order. This guy right here, this stops any sort of spell-based decks, stops pendulum decks. I know that Endymions are really good right now, especially with all the mixtures for the Amorphage or the Mythical Beast engine. But this guy stops all the spells. You pay 700 life points per standby phase, and then you just stop Sky Strikers, Pendulums, any spell-based decks. And Evenly Match, obviously, you guys know what it does. It just banishes everything. And then Goes in Match, I do run 2 of them. You can only control 1 attribute. So most of my monsters, I got 3 fires, I got 3 winds, and 1, I think it's water. So I normally try to use this when I have Ignis, and then I just have 3 Ignis. And it stops a lot of decks, especially those Guard Dragon decks, because I think especially Crusader Guard Dragon, a lot of those are different attributes. and then Rivalry. You can only control one type. Sometimes I like mixing that with there can only be one. That and there can only be one. That means you can only have one of one type. I mean, so it's really broken if you can get it out. But it's not as good as it used to be just because there can only be one right now. And like boards now seem to be a lot bigger than they used to be. And then of course, kind of like my last spice of the deck is 2 summon limits. I put this in for strikers, guard dragon, dangers, and I never flip it during their standby phase right off the bat. I wait for them to summon 2 monsters. So I wait for them to summon that like the Spinny or whatever, the Gazelle, and then get into the Baylink somehow, the Lady Debug into the Baylinks. And as soon as they summon the Baylinks, I flip up summon limit. And, you know, you can only summon 2 monsters per turn. Each of us can, but I don't summon very often per turn, so 2 is just fine for me. But summon limit for my opponent really cripples them because, like, after the Baylinks, they can't go into, you know, the Sunlight Wolf. They can't reincarnate Link into another Sunlight Wolf or Heat Leo. They can't OTK me with the Violet Chimera. I mean, there's so many stops for it in today's metagame. But I think it's a very, very underrated card, and not a lot of people actually run it. But I feel like True Draco is one of the best decks that actually can run it, and it won't hurt them as well. But anyway, guys, that's my True Draco deck profile for the April 2019 format. It might differ from what you guys run, and if you have any suggestions or comments, if you like it, if you dislike it, just let me know in the comments below. And always, if you like the video, please, subscribe to the channel because I will be putting out daily content as much as I can. And then thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.